am here with a local good citizen who's also a realtor and also very active in a community endeavor that I am very passionate about too. He is David Pilon from West Hartford. David, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I want to talk first about the real estate. You've been doing real estate in Connecticut for how long?
7.5 years.
And what would you say is your forte?
Well, it is, most people who want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. I've worked with a ton of people who are first-time home buyers, which, that's great because I love teaching people about the process of buying a home. But, it's equally as much fun to list houses because that's all about creating a cool appearance and a product for the world to see, basically, at this point.
Can you give us a little insight then? The process of buying a home, I would just assume, hey, look at listings and then go tell my realtor to show them. What more is involved that people should know about before they get started with the buying of a home?
Well, I mean, what I usually like to do with people is start by figuring out what their wants and needs are and, what they can actually afford, because, everybody starts at a different place. And if you're just trying to figure it out on your own, you may not realize that your budget actually affords you more than you thought it could, or sometimes people are dreaming a little bit and it ends up being quite a bit less. So, I mean, I guess I kind of go through a process where I talk about, what is your time frame? Do you want to do this in the next couple of months, or is this going to be, 6 months to a year, or even longer than that? And then we just break down, where do you want to be? Why do you want to be there? Just ask lots of questions and help people refine their search. So
now let's say it's a young couple. Are you allowed to ask these days, well, do you plan to have kids, or is that verboten?
Well, you can't really ask those questions.
You can't. And these days, I'm told you really can't ask or tell about school district quality, can you?
No, you can't. And actually, that's probably relevant to what you do quite a bit, huh? I come to think of it. So,
well, I'm not under realtor guidelines, and I do steer people when they might be sending themselves. I'm not in the real estate movement business, but when people are considering public school versus private school, that's what I and Ivy Bound do sometimes weigh in on. But you probably need to guide people in a choice of town based on schools. How do people then get the information if you're not allowed to give it?
Well, okay. So, I mean, that is an interesting issue, especially in a place like Connecticut, where we have, I believe it's like, it's over 160 very individual towns that do not share very many resources. So you just have to know how to lead people to, the resources that they might need. And actually, Mark, I think you might be a good resource for people if I were to have a buyer that had questions about school districts. I could, there's websites you could send people to, and, a lot of people that I work with personally are not moving here from out of state. Although I did have 2 people this year that were. The vast majority are people who already live here, know the area really well, and it's just time for them to buy their first home or sell their first home and buy their second home. So, I mean, that it's a question that does not come up very often, but if it does, I think you'd be a great resource for people.
I am speaking with David Pilon. In fact, David, can you give your information if people want to contact you about real estate endeavors?
Yes, you can reach me on my cell phone at 860-798-5742. My email, dave@themiale, M-I-A-L-E, team.com, or you can find me on Facebook and Instagram.
And that's Pilon.
Yes.
So let me turn to something that helps kids beyond what school or even what home they're in. and it is camp. And you're involved with a camp that I know fairly well from 45 years ago. Tell us what is new and special about Camp Jewell in Northwest Connecticut.
One of the things that's neat about the industry that I'm in is it allows me to spend a lot of time in things that I am passionate about in general, because you need to make a lot of connections, and one way you can do it is through things that you've been in your whole life already, been involved with anyways. So I'm on the board of Camp Jewell YMCA. I am the board development chair, which is basically, that means that I'm looking for more board members constantly.
What does a board member do?
Good question. We have a board of advisors. So there's full-time staff members at the camp, and they get people
How can they be full-time when a camp is at most 8 weeks?
Well, there's a summer program that is 8 weeks long, but there's also year-round outdoor education, recreational programs, ropes courses, team building. We have stuff going on all year long.
Okay.
I've actually personally, I have worked every season at Camp Jewell. So if anybody knows those programs, it would be me.
Knows the
so
ropes,
yes, there's something going on. Yes.
Now the camp is more than just for kids, right? Adults can take part in a lot of these things.
Yes, yeah, there's a lot of programs for people of all ages.
So tell me about what makes the summer program especially special.
Well, the summer program is really what it's all about. That's why it started as a summer camp. Camp Jewell started over 100 years ago in 1901. I remember it was a big deal in 2001 when we were celebrating our centennial. And it was just a way to, it was very primitive back then. And the first facility was at Lake Swansea in New Hampshire. And they were there until 1955, and when they moved to Colebrook, Connecticut, which is a little bit closer to Hartford. It's part of the greater Hartford YMCA, so it's good that they found a site a little closer. And that's the site that I've been involved with since I was 12 years old. So, well over 20 years at this point.
So what is the YMCA's involvement now with camping?
Well, there's some of there's only a couple organizations that are like big camping organizations. You have, the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, and the YMCA. So YMCA camps are unique in that, for one thing, I actually think they're really quite affordable. The average 2-week session hovers just below or above about $2,000. And when you think about what you get for that, which is 2 weeks of 24-hour supervision and 3 meals a day, and character development programming, and and kids having experiences, making new friends, I think it's really quite affordable.
So Dave, can you tell the rest of the world what makes Camp Jewell so special?
All right. Well, Camp Jewell is focused on character development. Most kids that go to camp say that they made a friend there. We have surveys that have shown that, which is really cool. I always made more friends at camp than I did at school, me personally. So I know people from all over the world and all over the country. I've driven across the country and stayed only with camp friends on my way across. So there's some very cool things. So those are the biggest things. I mean, other than that, like physically, the current facility has always been a year-round facility. So that is pretty cool too. You can go there any month of the year.
So what's it cost for a camper to go there during the summer months?
It costs about $2,000 to go there for 2 weeks in the summer.
Now, I know that you're working on some fundraising to help kids go for significantly less. Can you tell us about how much less?
Okay, so every year we have an annual campaign where we, raise a whole bunch of money that sends probably about 80 to 100 kids to camp for free. We have campaigns where we make phone calls, we send letters, we reach out to people in a number of different ways to see if they'd like to help. We also have an event that's like a wine tasting, fancy dinner type thing. There's a whole bunch of fun things that we do. 5K road race, and that is fulfilling the YMCA's mission to not turn anybody down. So that's the idea with that. I mean, that's what the YMCA does.
You must have like 500 applicants, though. You have 80 spots, which is really good, but there must be some kids getting turned down.
Well, yeah, that's why we have a goal of 160,000, which is based probably on how many applicants that there are. I'm sure we.
So
would
really,
not,
you are trying to get
fine
every applicant, every applicant who qualifies on need. You're trying to get a place for 2 weeks for her or him.
That is a goal. So that's why, even though our goal this year is 160,000, I'm sure if we raise a lot more than that, that would be fine.
That's great. Now look, even this is my take. Even at 2,000 a week, it's not bad. I went to that camp back in the day. That was the mid 70s, and then a couple of years later, my mom said, "You should go to this fancy camp with all these extras up in New Hampshire." It wasn't as good. Camp Jewell let me play, run around till I was dead beat. Then they still had neat activities in the evening for us. It was, I'd rather be there and save my parents the money.
Yeah, I mean, we are competing against camps that are twice or 3 times as expensive. I mean, just facility wise, even, right? So even if there are some camps that have the same or very similar facilities as Camp Jewell that cost so much more, and I don't know why really, but you get a lot. I mean, it's just because the YMCA is often more affordable doesn't mean that the programming isn't as good. It's very, very good.
Now, can you make a comparison? There's a couple other program camps that offer very deep scholarships too for kids in need. How does Jewell compare to those camps?
All right, so I mean, a couple other programs that we're thinking of here would be, there is Camp Woodstock, which is also part of the Greater Hartford YMCA. So we have 2 camps, which is Camp Jewell and Camp Woodstock. Woodstock is a much smaller program, and it's, in some ways, it's not like Camp Jewell. In Camp Jewell, like I said, it's a year-round facility. Camp Woodstock is more of just a summer facility. It has some stuff going on in the fall, in the spring, but it's a much more low-key operation. Which could potentially be good for some kids, but we're able to serve so many more people at Jewell than they are at Woodstock. And then I think the other one you're talking about is Camp Current, right, which is a very, very cool program. Not part of the YMCA, but for over 100 years. And it's a day camp. That would be the other big thing with that one. And that is in Farmington, in the Batterson Park area. And every kid gets to go for free. So they are funded in a number of different ways, but I think that's a cool program. But once again, it is a day camp. So if you want a full residential camp experience, where you can be there with up to 500 kids, that's what Camp Jewell is all about.
So funding these scholarships, I'll call them, you have 2 types of campaigns. You mentioned one. What's the other?
All right. Well, that is the scholarship we raised. We're aiming for 160,000 this year. The other thing that's going on at Camp Jewell is it was a facility that was built in 1955, and it's aging, right? So we need to build 15 new year-round cabins. And that in itself is about $8 million worth of work that needs to be done. In addition to that, just like general upgrades to the property, we're working on about 20 million. So something like this is a little bit more, it's a different kind of fundraising. And it's been going on for a couple of years already. We have built one beautiful cabin so far.
So is my bump 3A still there?
Yes, but not for long.
Okay. So if people want to get involved on either campaign, what's the best conduit?
Well, you could just call me.
Dave Pilon. Give us your number one more time in case people are just joining.
860-798-5742.
Are there any events calendared for 2020 when you said people can get together to basically hold a fundraiser? Is anything on the schedule yet?
Well, what we're looking at doing, and more details will be coming out about this soon, is for the past several years, we've done something that was really just more of a general annual benefit type event that included dinner and a wine tasting and an auction. We're thinking of doing something more farm to table ish this year. So that would be fun.
All right. Invite me and there's a good chance I will be there.
Cool.
Dave, thank you for filling us in so well. I am grateful to have you here and in West Hartford and all that you do. And I can tell where you are in West Hartford. It's a cool spot called spaces.com. Check it out if you need office space. Check out Dave if you need any space, because that is what he does. Realtor in West Hartford, but you serve, how far and wide do you go?
I'll drive an hour.
Fantastic. So if there's a home you're looking for, consider Dave Pilon, Miale Group. I thank you for listening. Dave, thanks for being on. I am Mark Stewart, and Happy New Year.
Thank you for having me.
So Dave is pretty multi-dimensional. I know him as a pretty thoughtful guy. I do a little real estate myself. He obviously does a lot. And I'd like to plumb your brain for thoughts on real estate generally. Tell me about threats. You mentioned it off camera. Tell us all about threats in the market.
All right. Well, everybody is concerned about tech companies, right? So if you went back 15 years ago, if you wanted to know anything about real estate, you maybe would have like some listings in the Sunday newspaper, or if that wasn't the case, then you didn't know what to do. All of the information was hidden, and the realtors were the keepers of that information.
Yes, your magic MLS complex.
Yes. So what happened at some point there is large tech companies convinced all of the MLSs, which is where we put all of the info. So wouldn't it be great if you sold us all the info? So they took all of the listing information and made it public. So this tool that we all need is a resource for all of us to put all of the listing information, then took the information that we put in it and made it public so that the public has all the info. It's kind of an interesting scenario if you think about it.
And that's how we end up with those 1% commission, like almost no servicing agents, right?
Well, that's like a whole separate issue. That is interesting. But like, I'm just saying, very generally speaking here, everybody who is listing a property as a realtor puts the information into the multiple listing service. Photos, property description, and all that. And then that all gets now syndicated to hundreds of thousands of websites. The most notable ones probably being like Zillow, Trulia, and home, realtor.com. And so now all that information that you used to have to go to a real estate office to get is just public. So now everybody, yeah. Like, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation that we
But
could
I
have about
still
those.
can't, I still can't meet the owner, have the owner show me the property. I'm still going to be using the owner's real estate agent to do all that, right?
You could, but that real estate agent that is representing the owner is their goal is to get the highest and best possible price for that owner. So if you're going directly to that person, that is not going to be the best possible scenario for you. You would, it would be highly beneficial for you to hire your own buyer's agent, which you don't pay anything for, and they are required to represent your best interest. So,
and how often do you represent a buyer in your work? I don't hear about this very often.
Buyers, it's more than 50% of the work, actually. Okay. Yes, that is a huge part of it. If you are buying real estate without the representation of a buyer's agent, you are doing yourself a disservice for sure.
Because my fee is not going to be any more as a buyer. I'm not paying you as an agent. You're going to get compensated because the seller is going to pay you as an agent. The
seller has already agreed to how much they're going to pay their listing agent and how much they're going to pay the buyer's agent that brings the buyer. So you don't pay anything extra for it.
Now, if I list with you and you happen to know a very good buyer for my house, you could be conceivably on both sides of the transaction. Do you do that, or do you still find a fellow agent to be the buyer's representative?
Well, there's two things to talk about there, actually. All right. So one would be that 90% of the time or more, the buyer that is serious and ready to buy your house already does have representation from a buyer's agent. So, or, they have somebody that they would like to use. So even if I know them, that could be the case, right?
Okay.
And then in addition to that, sure, if they happen to not have anybody, as long as everybody sort of understood everything that's going on. So there's lots of disclosures about dual agency that would happen at that point. So it is possible. And then you just become sort of like an intermediary person where but it's not the best representation for either side at that point. Okay. But if everybody kind of gets what's going on and it's still a win-win scenario, it can work. Yes.
Now, you mentioned that you're part of a realtor group. How did you choose who you'd be part of?
All right. So I did work by myself for more than 5 years. And just in November, I joined the Miale team at Keller Williams. So what does that mean, really, right? This team has combined all of the absolute best practices in real estate, which do make a difference in terms of, communication with clients and generating business and advertising your listing. And it has put them all together in one place where I can just come in and plug into it and give people the best results possible.
Now, if you're my agent and you want to go to Borneo for a week, then is another Miale team member going to be my agent while you're gone?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, but that's only like a fringe benefit of being one of my clients on the Miale team. And here's why I joined this group. All right. So in the next year, we have a gigantic budget for events, something I can never really do on my own, not anytime soon anyways. So it's like almost every other week there's an event. Wow. And that's what we do. That's the biggest way we advertise to the public that, we'll do Yard Goats, right? We'll do Wolfpack. We did a Star Wars preview. We did we're at the holiday stroll. We did photos with Santa, and it's just like endless amounts of events. And that's how we stay in touch with our client base. And so once you work with me, or even if I just feel like you're a person that I may want to work with in the future, then you get put on a list and you just get invited to all of these things. Okay. And that is why I wanted to be a part of this team. Like one of the biggest reasons, that and just the accountability and coaching that comes with, just as being.
What do you mean on the coaching?
Well, in real estate, you're just on your own. So having somebody help with in like, what is the structure of your day? Like, what are you agreeing to do every day? And then holding you accountable for that. That's another thing that we get as a part of this team.
So that's a fellow realtor who's been at it a little longer than you?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not even necessarily too much longer. But just it doesn't even have to be someone that's longer. It could be somebody that started at the same time as you. It's just like making sure you're checking it. Are you doing the things that you said you were going to do today? Right? Because we tend to not want to do the hard things. That's just how it is as humans. So
good for you.
That's
and probably good for all of us. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna wrap up. I wish you a happy New Year.
You too. Thank you for having me once again.
Sure.